Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Assalamualaikum, ma'am.
ma'am.
Waalaikum, ma'am.
Waalaikum assalam. Assalamualaikum, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Waalaikum assalam. Can you see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Today I will discuss about lipid. The lipid. What is lipid? I have already discussed first item and third item, that is acid, base, pH, buffer, and solution. I have completed it. Now I will discuss lipid. This is very important item. Lipid. What is lipid? Lipid are
Ma'am, what's the item number?
actually heterogeneous group of compounds. Item number most probably 6 or 7. 6 or 7. Lipids are the heterogeneous group of compounds related to fatty acids. Not homogeneously. There are different types of compounds in lipids. Lipids are the heterogeneous group of compounds related to fatty acid. What is fatty acid? I will discuss this later. Actually, lipids mainly contains fatty acid. That's why it is called related to fatty acids. And lipids are actually not homogeneous. Different type of compound it contains. It is heterogeneous group of compounds. But lipid have a one common property that they are relatively insoluble in water but soluble in non-polar solvent such as ether, chloroform, and benzene. The lipids have a common property. Lipid compounds have a common property. What is that property? They are relatively, not absolutely. They are relatively, some lipids are soluble in some extent in water. Not all lipids. That's why it is called relatively. They have the common property. What is that property? They are relatively insoluble in water. Lipids are relatively insoluble in water, but soluble in non-polar or fat solvent. Fat solvent. Non-polar solvent means fat solvents. What are that fat solvents? That is ether, chloroform, benzene. So lipids are the heterogeneous group of compounds that is related to fatty acids. That means they contain mainly fatty acids. And the common property of the lipid is they are relatively insoluble in water but soluble in non-polar or fat solvent. For example, ether, chloroform, benzene. The definition of lipid is very important both for written and viva, especially asked in viva. Definition is asked in Viva. Okay, do you understand what is lipid?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
classification of lipid. Classification of lipid. There are three categories of lipid, three types of lipid: simple lipid, complex lipid, and derived lipid. Simple, complex, and derived lipid. This classification also asks in Viva. What is simple lipid? Give example of simple lipid. What are the complex lipid and derived lipid? So lipids are classified into broad three groups. First one is simple lipid, next one is complex lipid, and third one is derived lipid. What is simple lipid? Esters of fatty acid with various alcohol. When fatty acid combines with various types of alcohol, that is called simple lipid. What is esters? Esters means combination of acid and alcohol. Production of a substance by combination of acid and alcohol is called ester. What is ester? Ester is produced by reaction between acid and alcohol. Acid and alcohol. Fatty acid is a type of acid. So when it reacts or combines with alcohol, it produces esters. That's why simple lipid are called esters of fatty acid with various types of alcohol. Ester. An organic compound formed from reaction between alcohol and acid by removal of water is called ester. So what is simple lipid? Simple lipid are the esters of fatty acid with various types of alcohol. That means when fatty acid combines with various types of alcohol, these substances are called simple lipid. Simple lipid are two types. One is fat, another one is wax. What is fat? Fat, when fatty acid combines with glycerol. Glycerol is a type of alcohol, one type of alcohol. So fatty acid, when combines with glycerol, the produced substance is known as fat. যখন ফ্যাটি অ্যাসিড গ্লিসারলের সাথে কম্বাইন্ড করবে, যে সাবস্টেন্সটা প্রডিউসড হবে, that substance is known as fat. So fat are the esters of fatty acid with glycerol. So fatty acid, when fatty acid combines with glycerol, the fat is produced. A fat in liquid state is known as oil. What is the difference between fat and oil? Only the difference in physical state, that is, fat liquid form is known as oil. When fat is in liquid form, it is known as oil.
Oil.
Sorry. Example, good example of fat and most common example. Everybody is asked in Viva, that is what, give an example of fat. That is triacyl glycerol. TAG, triacyl glycerol. Triacyl glycerol is the most common example of fat or oil. Fat or oil. Fat and oil, nothing different things, because when fat is liquid form, it is called oil. Only difference in physical state, not in chemical state. Not in chemical state. Fats and oil are same thing chemically, only difference in physical state. When fat is in liquid form, that is called oil. So triacyl glycerol is the common example of fat. So next one is wax. Wax. When fatty acid combines with higher molecular weight monohydric alcohol other than glycerol. That means when fatty acid combines with alcohol other than glycerol, and this alcohol is usually higher molecular weight alcohol. Monohydric means contains one hydroxyl group. Alcohol contains hydroxyl group. Any substance which contains hydroxyl group is called alcohol. So monohydric alcohol contains only one hydroxyl group. And when fatty acid combines with higher molecular weight monohydric alcohol, the waxes are produced. For example, retinol ester. Retinol is a alcohol. It is the alcoholic form of vitamin A. Alcoholic form of vitamin A. And when retinol is combined with fatty acid, that is from retinol ester. And this is a type of example of wax. Another cholesterol is a good alcohol. And when this cholesterol combines with fatty acid, that is formed cholesterol ester, and these are the examples of waxes. So what is simple lipid? Again, I will repeat it. That is simple lipid are produced by combination of fatty acid with various types of alcohol. Simple lipid are two types. That is fat and waxes. What is fat? When fatty acid combined with glycerol, that compound is known as fat. Most common example of fat is triacylglycerol. Triacylglycerol. Next one is wax. When fatty acid combines with alcohol other than glycerol. Glycerol ছাড়া বাকি high molecular weight alcohol-এর সাথে যখন attach হবে, that is known as wax. So when fatty acid combines with higher molecular weight monohydric alcohol other than glycerol, that is known as wax. For example, retinol ester, cholesterol ester. Do you understand, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, next is complex lipid. What is complex lipid? When fatty acid combines with alcohol and any other groups, that means esters of fatty acid containing groups in addition to alcohol and fatty acid. That means there are three compounds, three or more than three compounds. One is fatty acid, another one is alcohol, and third one is other groups. This is called complex lipid. So complex lipid mainly three or four groups. That is fatty acid, alcohol. These two group is common. These two group is common. But in addition to this group, it contains other group. When it contains phosphate group, this produce phospholipid. When it is contain carbohydrate, it is called glycolipid. So complex lipid are the fatty acid containing groups in addition to alcohol and fatty acid. This is called complex lipid. Classification of complex lipid is phospholipid. Phospholipid. Lipid containing, in addition to fatty acid and an alcohol, a phosphoric acid residue. That means when phospholipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and phosphate group, and this phosphate group actually comes from phosphoric acid. This is called phospholipid. So what does phospholipid contains? Phospholipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and phosphoric acid. They frequently have nitrogen containing base and other substituents. Three are common, and three groups are it contains three group must, that is fatty acid, alcohol, and phosphoric acid. Besides these three groups, there is a phospholipid mainly frequently contain another nitrogen containing base. For example, the example phospholipid. Acha, I'll discuss the structure of phospholipid later. Next, হচ্ছে glycolipid. Classification of complex lipid. I am discussing about classification of complex lipid. First classification is phospholipid. It contains phosphoric acid, alcohol, and fatty acid. Next, glycolipid. Glycolipid contains fatty acid, sphingosine. Here the alcohol portion is sphingosine and a carbohydrate. Here the alcohol portion is sphingosine, glycolipid. Huh? Another name is glycosphingolipid. Another name is glycosphingolipid. Lipids containing a fatty acid, sphingosine, that is the alcohol portion, and the carbohydrate, that is called glycolipid. And other complex lipid, for example, sulfolipid. What does sulfolipid contain? Sulfolipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and sulfate group. Aminolipid. What does aminolipid contain? Fatty acid, alcohol, and amino group. And lipoprotein contains fatty acid, alcohol, and protein. So these are the examples of other complex lipids. So what is complex lipid? Complex lipid is a compound composed of fatty acid, alcohol, and plus any other group. Any other group. There are different types of group can be attached. Okay. These complex lipid classify into there was phospholipid, glycolipid, and other complex lipid. What does phospholipid contains? Phospholipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and phosphoric acid. Besides this, they frequently contains a nitrogen containing base. Okay, this is phospholipid. Next, glycolipid. What is glycolipid? This glycolipid contains fatty acid, sphingosine, and this sphingosine is the alcohol portion of the glycolipid, and carbohydrate. So when fatty acid, sphingosine, and carbohydrate are combined, the glycolipid is produced. And other complex lipids, for example, sulfolipid, aminolipid, and lipoproteins. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
sulfolipid
Follow.
contains
Sulfolipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and sulfate group. Sulfur. Sulfur is a key element. Oh, so when is an fatty acid, তারপরে alcohol and sulfur combined, the sulfolipid is produced. Okay. Next হচ্ছে precursor and not and. Here it is correct. Or okay. Precursor or derived lipid, same name. It can be named as derived lipid or it can be named as precursor lipid. These derived lipid or precursor lipid are derived or produced by hydrolysis of simple and compound lipid. So when simple lipid and compound lipid are hydrolyzed in presence of water, the derived lipids are produced. So derived lipid or precursor lipid are the lipids that are produced by hydrolysis of simple lipid and compound lipid. What is hydrolysis? Breakdown of any substance in presence of water. Hydro means water. So lysis means breakdown. Hydro means water. So breakdown in presence of water. So when simple lipid and compound lipids are hydrolyzed, the derived lipid are produced. Most common example of derived lipids are fatty acid, glycerols, sterols, vitamin, fatty acid aldehydes, ketone bodies. These are the and fat-soluble vitamins and hormones are also example of derived lipid. This is very important question for Viva. This question is frequently asked in the Viva exam. What is derived lipid? Give some example of derived lipid. These are the lipids which are derived by hydrolysis of simple lipid, compound lipid, and simple lipid and compound lipid. Examples of fatty acid, glycerol, steroids, fatty aldehydes, ketone bodies, and fat-soluble vitamins and hormones. So this is the classification of lipid. Again, I will summarize it. That is, lipid are classified into simple lipids. Simple lipid are the fatty acid, esters of fatty acid with various types of alcohol. That means when fatty acid combines with various type of alcohol, that is called simple lipid. And simple lipid again classified into fat and waxes. When fatty acid combines with glycerol, that is called fat. That is a good example is triacyl glycerol. When fatty acid combines with high molecular weight monohydrate alcohol other than glycerol, that is called wax. Example is
Retinol.
retinol ester, cholesterol
Cholesterol.
ester. Okay. Next হচ্ছে complex lipid. When lipid contains fatty acid, alcohol, and any other groups. That lipid is known as complex lipid or compound lipid. Same thing. Complex lipid or compound lipid. Okay. This is again classified into three groups: phospholipid, glycolipid, and other lipids. Phospholipid contain fatty acid, glycerol, alcohol, and phosphoric acid. Glycolipid contains fatty acids, sphingosine, and carbohydrate. And other lipids are example of amino lipids, sulfolipid, lipoprotein. Okay. And next one is derived lipid. What is derived lipid? Derived lipid are the lipids that are produced by hydrolysis of simple lipid and complex lipid. For example, fatty acid, glycerol, steroids, and sterol fatty acid aldehyde, fat soluble vitamins, and hormones. Okay, this classification is important, very much important, both for written and viva. Okay, next question is what are the biological importance of lipid? That means why lipid is important for our body. Main source of main important point is source of energy and important storage from energy. Okay, lipid is a good source of energy. After burnout of 1 gram carbohydrate, you will get only 4 kilocalorie energy. And a burnout of 1 gram protein, you will get only 4 kilocalorie energy. But after burnout of fat, that is lipid triacylglycerol, it will produce 9 kilocalories. So it is a good source of energy and important storage of energy. That means triacylglycerol is stored in our body in adipose tissue. Triacylglycerol are stored in our body as in adipose tissue, and this triacylglycerol act as a storage form of energy. So lipids are the important source of energy and important storage form of energy. Okay, these lipids provides your body or our body essential fatty acid and helps in fat absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Fat soluble vitamins actually absorb during the absorption of lipid in our body. So these lipids provides essential fatty acid to us and helps in absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Please unmute yourself. কার্ডটা unmute করা নাই। আচ্ছা, provides essential fatty acid and helps in absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Our during absorption of lipids, during the time of absorption of lipids, all the fat soluble vitamins are absorbed. Okay, so provides essential fatty acid and helps in absorption of fat soluble vitamins. Act as a subcutaneous thermal perennial insulator, electrical insulator. What is insulator? Insulator are the substance that prevent
It
the loss
doesn't allow.
Ma'am, there's a lot of noise.
Yeah, why?
Ma'am, people are not keeping themselves mute.
Please unmute yourself. Everybody unmute yourself.
Roll
Ma'am,
number
mute,
62.
mute.
Roll number 62, unmute yourself. Okay. What is insulator? Insulator are the substance which prevent the passage of anything. For example, thermal insulator are the substance that prevent the loss of heat. Electrical insulation are the substance that prevent the loss of passage of electrical current. Okay, please unmute yourself. 95 তো আনমিউট করাই আছে
ম্যাম তানবীর আহমেদ
তানভীর আহমেদ unmute yourself. Next, so what is thermal insulator? Thermal insulator are the substance which prevent the loss of heat. That means that are the thermal insulator, and electrical insulator are the substance that are that prevent the passing of electrical current. These lipids actually act as a thermal insulator. Our subcutaneous fat. Subcutaneous fat means fat behind the skin. Our body contains a large amount of subcutaneous fat, that is fat behind the skin or below the skin. Below the skin, these are the subcutaneous fat. This subcutaneous fat act as a thermal insulator that prevents the loss of heat from our body, and this heat is maintained our body temperature. This heat is needed for regulation of body temperature, and this subcutaneous fat prevent the loss of heat from our body. So it acts as a thermal insulator, and this subcutaneous fat also act as an electrical insulator in our body. So the main importance of lipid is source of energy. This is a good source of energy, and this is a important storage form of energy. Yeah. Hello.
Act as subcutaneous thermal insulator এই পয়েন্টটা একটু বাংলায় যদি বলতেন।
আচ্ছা, ইনসুলেটর ইজ দি সাবস্টেন্স, যেগুলো সাবস্টেন্স তোমার হচ্ছে কোন জিনিসকে ট্রান্সপোর্ট হতে যাতায়াতে বাধা প্রদান করে, সেগুলোই হচ্ছে ইনসুলেটর। যেমন থার্মাল ইনসুলেটর কি করে, তোমার হিট লস হতে প্রিভেন্ট করে। আমাদের বডির জন্য কি দরকার? হিট দরকার না, এই বডি টেম্পারেচার মেনটেন। আমাদের বডি টেম্পারেচার কত? 98 to 99 ডিগ্রি ফারেনহাইটের মধ্যে। তো এইটুকু হিট আমাদের যদি বডি টেম্পারেচার মেনটেন না হয়, আমাদের বডিতে এনজাইমেটিক অ্যাক্টিভিটি হবে না, বিভিন্ন ধরনের সমস্যা দেখা দিবে। তো এই বডি টেম্পারেচারটাকে মেনটেন করতে হলে কি করতে হবে? তোমার হিটটাকে লস হতে দেওয়া যাবে না। দিস আমার সাবকিউটেনিয়াস ফ্যাট গুলো কি করে? থার্মাল ইনসুলেটর হিসেবে কাজ করে, যার কারণে হিটটা লস হয় না। তাহলে আমাদের নার্ভের ভিতর দিয়ে যখন ইলেকট্রিক্যাল, আমরা এটা নার্ভাস সিস্টেমে গিয়ে পড়বো, নার্ভের ভিতর দিয়ে যখন ইলেকট্রিক্যাল কারেন্ট পাস হয়, স্টিমুলেশন গুলো যায়, সেটাও এই লিপিডটাকে প্রিভেন্ট করে, ঠিক আছে, যেতে বাধা দেয়। বুঝতে পেরেছো? এই জন্য বলা হচ্ছে সাবকিউটেনিয়াস ফ্যাট, দ্যাট ইজ সাবকিউটেনিয়াস লিপিড অ্যাক্ট অ্যাজ এ থার্মাল ইনসুলেটর অ্যান্ড পেরিনিউরাল ইলেকট্রিক্যাল। ঠিক আছে, নিউরাল মিন্স নার্ভ, ঠিক আছে, নিউরাল মিন্স নার্ভ। So তাহলে these are the three important source of energy, storage form of energy. This lipid provides essential fatty acid to us and helps in absorption of fat soluble vitamin, and these lipids act as a thermal insulator and electrical insulator. Bilayer and mainly phospholipid. It contains mainly phospholipid. Other lipids also present, but mainly phospholipid. So, constitute biological membrane. That means lipids constitute or helps in synthesis of biological membrane, mainly phospholipid, and provides arachidonic acid to synthesize the icosanoid. This cell membrane contains arachidonic acid. This lipid in the cell membrane. This lipid in the cell membrane contains arachidonic acid. This arachidonic acid helps in the synthesis of icosanoids. What is icosanoids? Icosanoids are the biologically active substance that acts like a hormone. I will discuss it later. পরে আমরা এটা ডিটেইলস পড়বো, what is the icosanoids, what are the types of icosanoids, what are the function of icosanoids. I will discuss it later. Okay. So next function of lipid, it helps in production or synthesis of biological membrane, mainly phospholipid. Phospholipid helps in synthesis of lipid bilayer of the cell membrane, and this lipid bilayer contains phospholipid contains arachidonic acid. This phospholipid contains also arachidonic acid. This arachidonic acid helps in synthesis of icosanoids. This arachidonic acid helps in synthesis of icosanoids, and these icosanoids are biologically active substance that acts like a hormone. Next function of lipid is it acts as a mechanical cushion around the internal organ to protect them from mechanical injury. Our organ, vital organ, for example, liver, kidney, intestine, is surrounded by lipid. That means it acts as a cushion around the internal organ. And what is the importance of this lipid cushion? It gives protection from mechanical injury. That means outside pressure from outside. কেউ একজন ঘুষি দিল পেটের ভিতরে, হঠাৎ করে গিয়ে কি হতে পারে, লিভারে ইনজুর হতে পারে বা ইন্টেস্টাইন ইনজুর হতে পারে. So it protects the internal organ from mechanical injury. That means from outside pressure. Okay. So it acts as a mechanical cushion around the internal organ. This is also very important function of lipid. তারপরে what are the other functions? Essential for steroid and vitamin D synthesis. Our vitamin D, this is the important vitamin that are synthesized within our body, and the substance from which vitamin D is synthesized within our body is cholesterol. Cholesterol is the precursor substance from which vitamin D is synthesized. Cholesterol is the precursor substance from which vitamin D is synthesized within our body, and the cholesterol is an important lipid. So lipid helps in the synthesis of steroid and vitamin D. It helps in synthesis and vitamin D. This is asked in the Viva, which vitamin are synthesized within our body, and what is the compound, what is the name of the compound from which vitamin D is synthesized. Vitamin D is synthesized within our body, and the name of the compound is cholesterol, and the cholesterol is a good example of derived lipid. Cholesterol is a good example of derived lipid from which vitamin D is synthesized. And last one is helps in coagulation. That means blood coagulation. Helps in blood coagulation. Okay, helps in blood coagulation and act as a surfactant to prevent the collapsing of the lung alveoli. What is alveoli? Do you know what is alveoli?
Man, it is present in lung. Function
The air pockets, small air pocket present within the lung. These are the the air pocket, small air pocket present within the lung, and these are actually like a balloon. These are actually like a balloon. So, and this air pocket or alveoli contains a substance named as surfactant, which prevents the collapsing of the lung alveoli. This surfactant, the main function of this surfactant is prevent the collapsing of the lung alveoli. Collapsing means বাংলায় আমরা কি বলি চুপসে যাওয়া lung alveoli হলো এই সাউন্ড কমাও আনমিউট করো আনমিউট yourself এই লাং অ্যালভিলি যত চুপসে না যায় সেজন্য লাং অ্যালভিলিতে এক ধরনের সাবস্টেন্স থাকে তার নাম হচ্ছে সারফেক্ট্যান্ট and this surfactant is actually lipid substance lipid in nature. This surfactant actually lipid in nature, so the lipid also helps in blood coagulation and act as a surfactant to prevent the collapsing tendency of the lung alveoli. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So these are the important functions of the lipid. This is a written question as well as viva question. So I have already discussed the definition of the lipid, next classification of the lipid, and last one is importance of lipid. What are the important functions of lipid or importance of lipid in our body? Next question is what are the dietary lipids? Dietary lipids মানে কি লিপিড আমরা খাই, কি লিপিড কোন কোন আমরা খাই, ইনটেক করি। what are the dietary lipids? আমরা যত লিপিড ইনটেক করি এর 90% হচ্ছে ট্রাইএসাইল গ্লিসারল। 90% কি triacyl glycerol. Most of the dietary lipids are triacyl glycerol. That means 90% of total dietary lipid is triacyl glycerol. 90% of total dietary lipid is triacyl glycerol. And the main source of triacyl glycerol is vegetable oil or cooking oil. This is very important question for Viva. What is the importance of triacyl glycerol? Triacyl glycerol is the most common dietary lipid, that is 90%. Near about 90% dietary lipid. And the good source of the triacyl glycerol is the vegetable oil. That means soybean oil, mustard oil, okay, palm oil, like coconut oil. These are the vegetable oil and oil. Okay, next dietary lipids are cholesterol and cholesterol ester. Last one is phospholipid and free fatty acid. These are less important. These are less important. 90% of the dietary lipids is triacyl glycerol. Less common is cholesterol and cholesterol ester, phospholipid and free fatty acid. So these are the dietary lipids. This is asked in the Viva. Okay. Acha. Now I will discuss what is fatty acid. Definition e ki bolechilam? Definition e bolechilam lipids are the fatty acids are compounds related to fatty acid. Right now? Acha. Now what is fatty acid? Fatty acid means fatty acid are the aliphatic carboxylic acid consisting of a hydrocarbon chain and a terminal carboxyl group. What does aliphatic means? Aliphatic means straight chain, not branch. Straight. Aliphatic means straight chain. Carboxylic acid means it contains carboxyl functional group. What is the molecular formula of carboxyl group?
COOH.
COOH. So aliphatic are the fatty acid are the aliphatic carboxylic acids consisting of a hydrocarbon chain. Hydro means hydrogen, carbon and carbon. So chain containing carbon and hydrogen. Hydrocarbon chain contains two compounds. One is hydrogen, another one is carbon, and terminal carboxyl group. देखो, see this structure. This is the structure of the fatty acid. This is the COOH. This is the carboxylic acid, carboxyl group, carboxyl H. And it also contains a hydrocarbon chain, that is carbon, hydrogen, carbon, hydrogen. And terminal group, terminally it contains a methyl group, That means CH3. CH3. So fatty acid structure contains one hydrocarbon chain, and one side of the chain contains carboxyl group, that is the carboxyl end, COOH, and another end of the hydrocarbon chain contains methyl group, that is methyl end, CH3. This is the basic structure of the fatty acid. Everybody you should know. Everybody you should know the structure of the fatty acid. So the fatty acid is a hydrocarbon chain. Fatty acid structure contains a hydrocarbon chain, and the one end of the chain contains COOH, that is carboxyl group, and this is known as carboxyl end. Another end contains methyl group, CH3, and this is known as the methyl end. And the hydrocarbon chain is the hydrophobic part of the liquid. Hydrophobic part means relatively insoluble in water. Insoluble in water. Hydrophobic means insoluble in water, and hydrophilic portion, that is small portion, is carboxyl N, and that is hydrophilic part, that is soluble in water. That's why lipids contains is called relatively insoluble in water, because their hydrocarbon chain maximum portion is hydrophobic. That's why lipid is relatively insoluble in water. So this is the basic structure of the fatty acid. Everybody understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Now numbering of carbon atom in carbon chain. That means hydrocarbon chain. The first carbon. এখানে নাম্বারিংটা একটু হয়ে গেছে, ঠিক আছে? First carbon. The first carbon, that is the carboxyl carbon, is numbered as carbon number 1. What is the carbon number 1? Which carbon is the carbon number 1? The carboxylic carbon. That means carboxyl group. The carbon present in carboxyl group is known as carbon number 1. Next carbon is carbon number 2. That means carbon next to the carboxyl carbon. Next carbon is carbon number 3, and so on. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, according to the carbon present in fatty acid chain. Actually, fatty acid contains maximum 24 carbon. Maximum 24, up to 24 carbon it may be present in fatty acid. Okay. The carbon next to the carboxyl carbon, that means carbon number 2 is symbolized as alpha carbon, and the third carbon, that is carbon next to the carbon number alpha carbon, that is beta carbon. Okay, and next carbon alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and so on. এভাবে চলে যাবে, বুঝতে পেরেছো? আমি বাংলায় আবার বলছি বাঙালি স্টুডেন্টদের জন্য, কার্বক্সিল গ্রুপের যে কার্বনটা, that is the carbon number 1. কার্বক্সিল গ্রুপের পরে যে কার্বনটা, তুমি যদি if you count from carboxyl end, the carboxyl carboxyl carbon is numbered as carbon number 1, next carbon number 2, next 3, and so on. এভাবে চলে যাবে 4, 5, 6 depending on the number of amount of carbon present on the fatty acid chain. Okay, and the second carbon, that is the next to the carboxyl carbon, this carbon is symbolized as alpha carbon, and after that it is symbolized as beta carbon. This is very, very important in Viva. Everybody should ask in the Viva, that is what's beta carbon. What is beta carbon? Beta carbon কোনটা, এটা ভাইবাতে খুব কমনলি জিজ্ঞেস করা হয়। The third carbon counting from the carboxyl end of a fatty acid chain is known as beta carbon. Remember it. The third carbon counting from the carboxyl end in a fatty acid chain is known as the beta carbon. And the second carbon counting from the carboxyl end in a fatty acid chain is known as alpha carbon. So what is alpha carbon? Alpha carbon is the second carbon counting from the carboxyl end, and the third carbon counting from the carboxyl end is known as the beta carbon. And the methyl carbon, that is the terminal methyl group. This methyl carbon is symbolized as omega carbon. Okay, alpha carbon is the second carbon, and beta carbon is the third carbon, and the last carbon, that is omega carbon, methyl carbon, carbon present in the methyl group is known as the omega carbon. Do you understand, everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This is very important in Viva exam. This is very important question for Viva exam. Especially the common questions are, what is alpha carbon, what is beta carbon, and what is omega carbon. Omega carbon is the methyl carbon. Okay, alpha carbon is the second carbon counting from carboxyl end, and beta carbon is the third carbon counting from the carboxyl end. And this methyl carbon again class as omega carbon can be again symbolized as omega 1 before next